They want to bury the truth, screened headlines across social media last week after the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services demanded that a major aluminum in vaccine study be erased from the scientific record. But here's the twist that's driving both sides of the debate into a frenzy. The journal flat out refused. No retraction, no apology, not even a slap on the wrist for the authors. And this is where it gets controversial, because the decision is either a heroic stand for evidence-based medicine or, depending on whom you ask, a glaring example of institutional arrogance. The paper at the center of the firestorm landed in the Annals of Internal Medicine on July 15th. Using Denmark's famously meticulous national health registers, researchers tracked 1.2 million children born between 2003 and 2017. They tallied every microgram of aluminum each child received through routine shots during the first 2 years of life, then watched for any uptick in 50 different chronic conditions: autism spectrum disorders, asthma, type 1 diabetes, severe allergies, even juvenile arthritis. The headline finding? No signal. Zero. Zip. The kids who got the most aluminum-laced vaccines were no more likely to develop these illnesses than kids who got the least. Lead author Nicholas Worm Andersen, MD, PhD from Copenhagen Statens Serum Institute, told MedPage Today that the study's sheer size and 24-year observation window make it one of the most robust safety analyses ever conducted on childhood vaccines. Co-author Anders Veed, MSc, and Dr. Med Sci doubled down. If aluminum adjuvants were silently wreaking havoc, we would have seen at least a whisper of it in this dataset. We didn't. Cue the backlash. Within days, Trial Site News published a fiery op-ed co-signed by HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., calling the study badly flawed and urging immediate retraction. Commenters on the Annals website piled on, questioning everything from the statistical models to the funding sources. Some accused the authors of cherry-picking endpoints. Others insisted the follow-up period was too short to catch late-onset disorders. A few even floated darker theories about industry capture. But here's the part most people miss. Journal editors don't retract papers just because readers dislike the results. Christine Lane, MD, MPH, editor-in-chief of Annals, laid down the law in a public response. Retraction is reserved for 2 scenarios: demonstrable scientific misconduct or fatal errors that invalidate the findings, she wrote. We found neither. She pointed out that the study underwent double-blind peer review by external clinicians, statisticians, and vaccine safety experts, and that the raw data, far richer than anything available in the U.S., were independently verified. Still, the controversy refuses to die. Why? Because the Danish investigation was partly designed to investigate an earlier, much smaller CDC analysis that hinted at a link between aluminum exposure and persistent asthma. That CDC study, based on the vaccine safety data link, was never strong enough to trigger policy changes, but it did plant a seed of doubt. The Danish team hoped to squash or confirm that signal once and for all. Their answer: no association, at least not in a Scandinavian population with universal health care and near-perfect vaccination records. Let's zoom out for a second. Aluminum salts have been used as vaccine boosters since the 1930s. They act like a tiny alarm bell, waking up the immune system so it mounts a stronger, longer-lasting response. The average infant receives about 4.4 milligrams of aluminum from all vaccines combined during the first 6 months of life. Sound scary? Consider this. Breastfed babies swallow roughly 7 milligrams from mom's milk alone. Formula-fed infants get 38 milligrams. And soy formula babies can ingest up to 117 milligrams in the same time frame. In other words, vaccines are a drop in the aluminum bucket. But, and this is where reasonable minds can still disagree, observational studies can never prove absolute safety. They can only quantify risk within the limits of their design. Critics argue that subtle neurodevelopmental delays might not surface until adolescence, long after the study's follow-up ended. Others counter that Denmark's nationwide registries capture physician-diagnosed conditions with uncanny accuracy. making large-scale underreporting unlikely. So what should parents take away from this saga? First, the best available evidence, millions of patient years of data, suggests aluminum adjuvanted vaccines do not increase the risk of the 50 conditions studied. Second, no single study, however large, is the final word. Science moves in increments, and future analyses may refine or even challenge these findings. Third, the call for retraction itself has become a political litmus test, blurring the line between legitimate scientific critique and ideological warfare. Now, here's the provocative question I'll leave you with. If a study this massive and carefully executed can't settle the aluminum debate, what kind of evidence ever could? Or is the real issue not the data at all, but a deeper mistrust of public health institutions? Drop your take below. Agree, disagree, or bring receipts. Let's keep the conversation civil, but let's not pretend the stakes are anything less than the health of the next generation.